5,127. That's how many prototypes James Dyson built before his vacuum cleaner worked. 5,126 failures. 1 success. It took him 5 years. He had no engineering degree. His wife supported the family by teaching art classes. He borrowed against his house. His friends thought he was insane. Today, Dyson is worth over $13 billion. His company generates nearly $9 billion in annual revenue. He still owns 100% of it. This is the story of the most stubborn man in the history of business. James Dyson was born in 1947 in Cromer, a small town on the coast of Norfolk, England. His father, Alec, was a classics teacher. When James was 9 years old, his father died of cancer. The family had almost nothing after that. James later described his childhood home as penniless. But losing his father taught him something early. Don't waste time doing things you don't want to do. Life is too short. At school, James wasn't a natural academic, but he was a natural runner, a long-distance runner. And he said later that running taught him determination, the ability to keep going when your body tells you to stop. That skill would define his entire life. James studied art, first at the Byam Shaw School of Art in London, then furniture and interior design at the Royal College of Art. He wasn't an engineer. He was a designer, someone who saw the world in terms of problems that needed solving. While still a student, he met Jeremy Fry, a wealthy inventor and engineer who became his mentor. Fry put him in charge of designing a high-speed landing craft called the Sea Truck. James was 23. He had never designed a product before in his life. The Sea Truck was a success, and Fry taught him a lesson he never forgot. You don't need experience to do extraordinary things. You just need the willingness to fail. In 1974, James went out on his own. He invented the Ballbarrow, a wheelbarrow with a ball instead of a wheel. It was featured on BBC television. It worked brilliantly, but the company he built around it fell apart. His co-directors sold off the intellectual property behind his back. James was pushed out of his own company. He lost everything, but it was while making the Ballbarrow that something happened, something that would change his life. In his factory, there was a spray painting room. The air filters kept clogging with powder. James visited a local sawmill and saw a 30-foot industrial cyclone, a device that spun air at high speed to separate dust from clean air. It never clogged. He built a smaller version for his factory. And then a thought struck him. If a cyclone could clean the air in a factory, could it clean the air in a vacuum cleaner? At home, James had a Hoover Jr. Like every vacuum cleaner at the time, it used a paper bag to collect dust. And like every vacuum cleaner, it lost suction as the bag filled up. The pores clogged. The machine became useless. James ripped the bag out of his Hoover. He replaced it with a crude cardboard Cyclone held together with tape. It worked. Not well. Not perfectly, but the principle was proven. A vacuum cleaner could work without a bag. Now he just had to make it work properly. What followed were 5 years of obsession. Working from a converted coach house behind his farmhouse near Bath, James built prototype after prototype. Each one differed from the last by a single modification, a slightly different cone angle, a marginally wider inlet pipe, a fractionally altered entry point. He wasn't guessing. He was methodically testing every variable, one at a time. His wife, Deirdre, an artist and painter, taught art classes to bring in money. She sewed the children's clothes by hand. They grew their own vegetables. The bank loan secured against their house grew larger every month. By prototype 2000, most people would have quit. By prototype 4000, anyone rational would have walked away. James kept going. Prototype 5127 worked. It was 1983. James was 36 years old. He was deeply in debt, and he had just built something that no one in the world wanted to buy. Every major vacuum cleaner manufacturer rejected him. Hoover said no. Electrolux said no. Miele said no. Every single one. Why? Because the vacuum bag industry was worth hundreds of millions of pounds a year. A bagless vacuum cleaner would destroy that entire market. They didn't want a better product. They wanted to protect their profits. One director at his former company told him if there were a better kind of vacuum cleaner, Hoover or Electrolux would have invented it. No UK manufacturer would touch it. No distributor would sell it. So James did something unexpected. He went to Japan. Through catalog sales, He launched the G-Force vacuum cleaner in Japan in 1986. It was bright pink. It cost the equivalent of $2,000. And it sold. The G-Force won the 1991 International Design Fair Prize in Japan. It proved the concept. People would pay a premium for a vacuum that actually worked. The income from Japan gave James enough money to do what he had wanted to do all along, build his own company. In 1993, James Dyson opened a factory in Malmesbury, Wiltshire. He launched the DC-01, the first Dyson-branded vacuum cleaner. It was priced at £200, up to 4 times more expensive than competitors. Retailers were skeptical. The market for premium vacuums barely existed. Experts said nobody would pay that much for a vacuum cleaner. Within 18 months, the DC-01 became the best-selling vacuum cleaner in the entire United Kingdom. It outsold Hoover. It outsold Electrolux. It outsold the companies that had told him his idea would never work. The slogan was simple: say goodbye to the bag. Dyson didn't stop at vacuum cleaners. He applied the same obsessive, prototype-driven approach to everything. Bladeless fans, hand dryers, hair dryers, air purifiers. Each product challenged an industry that had stopped innovating. Each product was built on thousands of hours of testing. By 2023, Dyson had reached record revenue of £7.1 billion, nearly $9 billion. The company that started in a coach house now employs thousands of engineers and sells products in over 65 countries. By 2023, the Sunday Times Rich List valued the Dyson family fortune at £23 billion, making James the 5th richest person in the United Kingdom. He still owns 100% of the company. He never took it public. He never gave up control. The man who spent 5 years in a coach house building prototypes now owns one of the most valuable private technology companies on Earth. Here's what makes James Dyson's story different from every other success story. He didn't have a breakthrough moment. There was no sudden flash of genius, no lucky break. There were 5,127 attempts, each one a tiny step forward. Most people hear that number and think, that's insane. Who builds 5,000 prototypes of anything? Someone who understands that failure isn't the opposite of success. Failure is the process. James Dyson once said, I made 5,127 prototypes of my vacuum before I got it right. There were 5,126 failures, but I learned from each one. That's how I came up with a solution. His wife kept the family alive while he chased an idea that everyone said was impossible. His competitors told him it couldn't be done. His own business partners threw him out. Every manufacturer said no, and he just kept building the next prototype. The lesson isn't about vacuum cleaners. It's about what happens when you decide that the number of failures doesn't matter. Only the final result does. 5,127 prototypes, one man, one idea, one obsession, and a company worth billions. Sometimes the only difference between failure and success is the willingness to build prototype 5,128. Remember, every fortune has a story, and every story has a lesson. What other money stories should we cover? Drop your suggestions in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and subscribe. Until next time.